Allow me to welcome you all to today's webinar, How to Leverage Data Science for Inventory Management. My name is Rakesh Ramchandani, Vice President of Digital Solutions at Sybase, and I am joined today by Kiran Kembavi. Kiran?
Hey, thanks Rakesh. Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are today. I'm very excited today to talk about cool things that data science can do for the retail vertical.
Thanks, Kiran. Thank you all for taking the time. It's indeed very exciting to see this large turnout. So let's get started. Today's session, How to Leverage Data Science for Inventory Management, we'll aim to focus on the art of leveraging data science for inventory management. We will be demonstrating our prescriptive analytics solution, DecisionMines. As we progress through the webinar, we will discover how DecisionMines irons out your everyday retail challenges. Here's an overview of the agenda. We'll start with the broad industry-level trends and issues and then dig deep into specific challenges. There are demos lined up today addressing two key challenges and opportunities the retail industry is facing today: recommending private label candidates and synchronizing inventory planning with an eye on increased gross margin return on investment. This is followed by a brief about our solution, DecisionMines, and then followed by a brief on Sybase. There is a Q&A tab on your window. You can post in your queries anytime during the webinar and we'll address those at the end. So let's get started. The retail industry today has been for some time at the center of some major disruptions, both on the consumer experience front as well as around operational efficiency. The modern approach now is designing a cohesive user experience for customers at every touch point. This differs from traditional marketing, where individual channels were optimized without considering the cross-channel experience. There is a clear trend, as is visible here, in consumer spending patterns based on persona, their respective buying preferences, and needs. With data flowing in via customer interactions, the process of knowing your customers is getting better for retailers. Leaders in this data-driven space exploit this trend to draw valuable insights to align their operations and meet customer demands in an express fashion. And in the process, these technology-led species of retailers are creating new rules of business, which then the rest of the industry eventually will have to follow as a mandate. This slide speaks of increase in online and online influenced offline sales. According to a Statista study, online and online influenced offline sales have contributed to 51% of total sales in 2016, which is projected to increase to 55% by 2020. This trend is being backed by another study conducted by Deloitte in 2019, according to which digital interactions influence 56% of every dollar spent in brick and mortar stores, up from 36 cents just 3 years ago. Whether customers are in-store or online, they check prices and features online to oversee their purchases. And in many ways, digital and physical interactions complement each other and fuel both online as well as offline revenues. On one hand, the analyst community is talking about the retail apocalypse, the closing down of many brick and mortar stores in North America, especially those of large chains. And on the other hand, Amazon acquired Whole Foods Market to offer perishable products and became an owner of 400 stores, indicating that it is impossible to undermine the importance of physical retail. Further, it is also considering the launch of 3,000 Amazon Go stores, of which 10 have already been piloted. With the advent of digital and access to information anytime, anywhere, customers are getting more powerful. Is an increased This has increased focus on transparency and a sense of control. This slide speaks of something that we all are familiar with for a while now. The margins are shrinking, and the year-on-year growth is also something that, while has been growing, but has been posing challenges. This transparency across online and offline channels is leading to a price war, as each retailer is trying to outdo the other by offering consumers the lowest price in the market. This slide shows the impact of the ongoing price wars. Margins are constantly shrinking due to this price war, and even though the average revenue has shot up, average net profit has seen a decline on a year-on-year basis. To be cost effective, a retailer either increases the price or decreases the operational cost or differentiate. One cannot obviously do the former always, so optimization and differentiation are the ways out. Optimization is a function of effective resource utilization and inventory optimization, what we call the gross margin return on investment. And differentiation is about launching products and services in such a way that they become an instant hit with customers, and launching private label products after gauging customer propensity towards them presents this opportunity to differentiate. And this will be the second focus for our demo today. With number of private label product lines increasing, the role of analytics becomes an important factor to understand the impact on customer consumption behavior. This is an interesting slide speaking of the consumer preferences around private labels. Private label brands are brands produced, owned, and sold exclusively by retailers in an attempt to differentiate their store offerings from those of competitors. The products sold under a private label brand are typically lower priced and less heavily advertised than the national brands. Another advantage is little to no R&D expenses that innovations usually require, and relatively, these private label brands offer faster time to market. Apart from price, consumers seek quality and value, and private labels deliver on both these promises. Private labels offer extremely good value for money, and this makes customers feel like they've earned value for their buck. As per the IRI Consumer Connect report, majority of shopping behavior of consumers across income groups show higher affinity towards private label products, not only to save money, but offer products that are more popular, more particularly in lesser income households. Also, majority of shopping behavior by generations indicate higher affinity towards private label products to save money over new lower priced brands, with millennials showing highest inclination towards these private label brands. As is visible on the graph on the right, 74% consumers believe that private label is now a better value for their money, and 59% believe private labels offer greater variety. What's in it for the retailers? Retailers can stand to make margins 25 to 30% higher than from retailing manufacturer brands. The price differential between private label brands and national brands is as much as 30% based on IRI research. And private label sales are projected to grow to capture 25% of the revenue in the next decade. Before we go ahead, let's take a quick look at the latest trends in private label marketing. So I'll not read through the entire set of slides, but as an example, when we look at private differential between PLB and national brands, we see as much as of a 30% difference. And e-commerce private label sales are seeing explosive growth across food and beverage and non-food categories. The next slide speaks of retailers' challenges. Retailers are missing out on nearly $1 trillion in sales because they do not have on hand what customers want to buy in stores. And this is based on a study of about 600 households and several retailers conducted last year by IHL Group. On one side, we have the out-of-stock issue, where in North America, almost $145 billion were lost despite overproduction. And then there's the overstock issue of surplus inventory worth $250 billion every year. Now that's a good use case to nullify. The way is to strike the balance by identifying problems where the old and effective methods of working and advocating inventory scenarios need change. And this kind of leads to, from a retailer's point of view, the urgency to optimize inventory and the gross margin return on investment. Why we think it is high time to optimize inventory is based on a recent report by Courtside Research and Select. So U.S. non-grocery retailers lost $300 billion in revenue due to markdowns in 2018, equivalent to 12% of the total sales. And respondents cited inventory misjudgments as a primary markdown driver and barrier to selling at full price, accounting for more than half of unplanned markdown costs. The majority of survey respondents identified specific ways in which advanced analytics could help the retail sector sell more products at full price. And this kind of, leads us to looking at data rather than looking at the cognitive biases that get into decision making. So the systems need to consider causal relationships between various variables such as store size, store type, unobservable lost sales, assortment mix, demand variations, seasonality, along with other transactional data points. While so many data sets and variables may be available with an enterprise, many times decisions are based on intuition and gut feel, apart from looking at few very common data sets. This leads to business decisions being subject to cognitive bias and may lead to aberrations and anomalies like the trends we saw on the previous slide. Cognitive biases can be avoided, and this requires a thorough understanding of the data that exists in an enterprise and the associated known unknowns and unknown unknowns. And this is something my colleague Kiran will touch upon as we walk through the demo. Identifying the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns available in a data ecosystem may involve looking at what has been considered and what could be other scenarios which we may not have thought through, and this may lead to significant information gain for more accurate predictions. This slide speaks of, as we move down the infographic, how we can evolve when we look from left to right. The evolution speaks of whether it is the interventions, the accuracy, the user control that a data-driven solution can offer. Those who can foresee and navigate risks have always been more likely to thrive, and that's just as true in business, where the ability to see ahead continues to separate performance leaders from the crowd. What we really need is an improved forecasting system where the system is statistically driven with little or no manual intervention. Even with the modeling approach, existing approaches often ignore causal relationships between external factors and demand that could be leveraged by improving forecasting, and rather rely on simplifying distributional assumptions that may not fit real data. An ideal solution would look at multiple and distinct data sets coming from internal and external data sources. It learns over time and adjust to changes in demand and ordering behaviors, which is highly accurate and goal-oriented that considers the behavior of causal relationships. There are simple controls to inform the model about your goals, data accuracy, and focus. With the power of technology, it helps retailers move from the traditional to the digital way of leveraging data for effective decision making. Here we kind of, build our approach in terms of how business leaders can benefit from a data-driven decision management solution. The ability to make intelligent decisions that drive growth, disrupt the market, and capitalize on emerging opportunities is now linked less to gut feel and more to intelligent and data-driven insights. By turning the lens inwards on actionable insights and data-driven decisions, big data can also be a competitive advantage by helping leaders sharpen their focus on hiring, retention, compensation, and importantly, developing the human capital. Effective decision-making metrics is all about three key aspects: translating strategic goals into tactical actions, identifying threats and opportunities as early as possible, and making consistent and speedy data-driven decisions. With this, we kind of get to the demo, and I will not hold you guys back here. So here are the two scenarios that we will be presenting today. One is around the private label candidates and how we can help predict the demand for them, and how we can help with identifying scenarios for gross margin return on investment in terms of inventory forecasting considerations. So with that, Kiran, let me transfer the control to you and we can get started.
Thank you, Rakesh. Hello, everyone, again. Let me just give me a few seconds here to share my screen and go over to the demo. Okay. Rakesh, I hope you can see the screen. Great. So that was definitely a lot of very useful research that Rakesh shared, which sets the basis of the need for changing the way we make decisions on private labeling. I want to showcase in the demo how it becomes very challenging for the folks who are making these day-to-day decisions within the enterprise to leverage any kind of data. Most of the organizations today do use forecasting models in order to decide what is going to be the trend of these branded products which may do well, and how do I go about deciding for the private label. So the key challenges there, the first and foremost, is the significant limitations in going the route of pure forecasting, because the amount of time it takes for these folks to be able to place an order with the vendor and get these products hit the shelf, you might have actually missed out the demand curve itself. That's the first challenge. The second challenge is it cannot be a pure play decision only based on the demand that we see. It also has to augment challenges related to how much time is it going to take for the vendors to produce, how much time is it going to take in the entire supply chain for the product to be able to hit my warehouse or online stores or offline stores. It also becomes extremely important to look at other business constraints that I may have, which might be very periodic in nature. Maybe there are certain types of products I don't want to stock at a particular time, or I may have challenges in marketing those products, and so on and so forth. Most of these decisions happen offline today. The significant area where data is leveraged is purely in forecasting whether a product will do well in revenue or not. And we feel that's very slow moving decision. So here's what DecisionMines does, is it allows you a very, very simplistic view versus the traditional self-help advanced analytics that organizations use? What if, as a decision maker, when I simply log in to my dashboard, it actually has taken care of all the factors, whether not only in terms of the uh, predicted demand or forecasted demand, but also the amount of time it would take for my vendor to be able to manufacture it? Does it fit into the various business constraints and so on and so forth? It has done all that legwork, and it is also continuously doing it as new data sets are coming in. It can recalculate, and then what if it shows on the dashboard that after looking at all of these factors, here's your first product that you should be going after private labeling, which you're not already private labeling. And it goes in a sequence. So depending on my organization's appetite, budget, and focus, I could actually decide that, okay, here are the top 5 that I want to go after. I may even want to put in constraints, such as I want to go in a distribution of certain product categories when I do private labeling, and all of that magically happens, and I could just say, rest assured that the top one that I have here is the one I should be private labeling. I will, of course, always be curious on the machine that is running behind the scene. Why has it made a decision that it has made? And it's fairly easy, which is typically what is called the Diagnostic Insights. DecisionMines, once it has made the decision, it can actually showcase to you various factors that have gone into the decision making, the various trends that this entity or product has shown. In this case, for example, it's showing how the branded part itself has been doing in the market, how's the seasonality been, what the revenue trend has been, how many quantities have been sold. And if you're a little more interested in digging a little deeper and want to study the patterns themselves, it can also showcase to you what it found when it is learning from all sets of data over a period of time. It found that there are certain brands that maybe, and the scenario will change from organization to organization depending on what truth the data is telling. In this case, maybe there are certain brands which seem to be really expensive, but have a good footprint in the market. And in that case, it's saying that the brand rank itself in the industry does make a difference. It seems to be a significant contributor in how people respond to the private labels that come out in the market. Then in this case, since we were talking about auto parts, it is also telling what is the combination of the make, year, and model of a car, which means what footprint of cars does this product cover. And it found that the sweet spot in this case is if there are 8 generations of cars or 8 different years of cars that this product is supporting, that seems to be a very sweet spot where the private labels are seeing very good response in the market, and so on and so forth. Traditionally, if you would go with analytics, self-help analytics, it becomes extremely difficult to keep a tab, look at all these correlations behind the scene and make a judgment in a very, very changing market, which has a very seasonal behavior. And imagine all of this happening out of the box based on your own data sets and not based on an industry practice. Now, this is great. At the end of the day, it's a black box which claims to be self-learning. How effective is it? And that's where DecisionMines also opens up its own performance. And as a consumer of this decision point, I can go to the performance tab and look at how is DecisionMines recommendations done. And in this case, as it's showing that for on the quarter ending 1st of Jan 2017, it had actually done 88%, which means 88% of its private label recommendations actually met the goal or the threshold that I had set. The threshold could be that I want to cross a certain revenue mark whenever I invest into a private label. The threshold could be I want to gain a certain degree of profitability for a private label, or it could be a combination of two, and we could even define any other goal that we want. It also gives me, it's not just telling me the overall score, I could actually dig deeper, and it can precisely tell me for the quarter the past quarter that it recommended, in this case, the quarter from 2nd April to 1st of July, it lists down all the products that were available for consideration for private labeling. And it shows me that DecisionMines had recommended this product, and it actually did end up in rank 1 of revenue, and so on and so forth. And as you can see in the list, there's rank 12 which is missing. So it's very transparently also telling you that it may not be possible to tell all 100% of the products in the million product catalog that you have. So it did miss on identifying 12, but that also gives me the confidence on the areas where it's doing really well. And if this number starts falling, it's an indication for me that either some data sets are missing, which are not indicating the industry patterns, and I just need to go back and tune the model. Fairly straightforward. It also shows me not only successes, but it can also show me the failures, which are the products where it actually recommended that something would do well, but it did not really do as much on the revenue itself. And so that brings me to the private label, end of the discussion on the private label. I will move and start talking about the second area, which is also very important, that Rakesh mentioned that research is showing, is how do you make your decisions on inventory, which products I should be ordering and how much quantities for which location and so on and so forth, and the multiple roles involved. It's either going to be your warehouse manager, or other folks who are responsible for placing orders with the vendors. A very similar challenge like private label exists here. Most of the times, the orders are based either on gut feel, which is definitely important. There is an experience angle to it. But the second aspect that is used is, again, pure play forecast. The problem with that is a pure play forecast is just telling you which products you're going to run out of stock. But for a business to be successful, it needs to go beyond that. And let me elaborate what I mean by that is it's not only important for me to decide based on what is the customer demand, which is most of the time that is the only thing looked at, but it is also equally important to look at what is the lead time for this product to hit the shelf. What is the velocity at which this product is going during various stages of the year? How are the various channels performing? Is this a true demand, or is this a perceived demand because I am actually using markdowns to clear some stocks, and that has ended up showing to my forecast that the products are going really fast, and I don't really want to be selling products which are marked down significantly. And at the same time, I also want to look at the cost of stocking that inventory itself. This is what I truly need if I want to rely on a decision management prescriptive system. And DecisionMines looks at all this and more depending on what other data sets are available, whether these are competitive data sets that are showing industry trends, what your competition is doing next door, and so on and so forth. So the list can just go on here. After looking at all those parameters, it also looks at a goal. If your organization's goal, for example, is to maximize certain aspects of maybe customer satisfaction, then give certain weightage, X amount of weightage to your revenue and profitability. So based on those goals, DecisionMines prediction models, machine learning models will come up with a recommended weightage for each of these. So for example, it says if you give this type of weightage to all the aspects that we spoke about, your business is going to run optimal overall. And using this guidance, I can definitely override some of those weights. For example, I spoke about markdown histories. Maybe I have a competition next door who is giving very competitive pricing. And for a certain type of product categories, I do want to stay with the competition, irrespective of some impact that it may have on my business. So I will go and say, no, for markdown histories, please ignore some of that. And I could override these, and the model would just pick it up for the next iteration. And again, very similar to the private labels, as soon as I log in, it actually shows me products, categories that I may be responsible for, depending on my role, while the machine learning is running on the overall data sets and all the products. When it comes to the output, it will still show me what my universe is. So that simplifies things for me. So for example, it's saying here, here's a window regulator, which should be your top focus right now, because there are only 16 units in hand, and there's just one day to go out of stock. Now, typically, this would end up becoming red because over a period of time, I've kept ignoring the recommendations. Maybe at some point in time, this recommendation was at number 10, but I did not act on it. The order has not yet been placed, so it ended up becoming number 1 as time passes and the data is showing. As you can see, there is a good balance on it. It's not just giving bias towards either customer demand or profitability. It's achieving a good balance because at this line, you can see here's a product that can offer me really good return on investment, but it is still at number 5 because if I don't deal with this product right here, I'm actually going to jeopardize my customer satisfaction. This is just not going to be on the shelf. So it takes off that pressure of doing the balancing act between the various parameters and sometimes conflicting parameters for me as somebody who's responsible for ordering the stock and managing the stock. Again, for the inquisitive ones, it will give very detailed insights or diagnostics in terms of how that merchandise has been doing, what has been the behavior of various channels to which you're selling to, and so on and so forth. It's also showing you stats around what is the current level of inventory and so on and so forth. And since DecisionMines has all the data available to it from all sources, it's fairly straightforward for the insights to pull and show those information depending on what the end user is wanting to have a look at. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share today in the demo. It definitely want to highlight the ease at which decision makers can leverage the complexities of data science behind the scene, and just on a day-to-day basis, rest assured that all these balancing act has been taken care of. New data sets that are coming in are showing me the live truth on a daily basis, and pretty much simplify my tasks on a day-to-day basis or decision making on a day-to-day basis. Let me just switch over to the slides here. Okay, great. So if you look at it from the business benefit, one of the key essence of leveraging a decision management solution that is data science backed is it allows you to unearth the opportunities which otherwise will not be visible because they are hidden in piles of data, layers of data. And similar story with the threats. There must be lurking threats which, if data would have been analyzed from multiple angles, which is not traditionally possible with the self-help or canned reporting and analytics that most organizations tend to do. And even if they do some advanced analytics, which requires click through and so on and so forth, they may still be out of date because depending on the frequency at which you're revisiting them. So that is one very key aspect. The second very important aspect by bringing this into an automated fashion for decision making is it ensures that as your organization goals are evolving, they can simply be tuned through dials into the system, and that the actions are optimized. You're not missing on what is your strategic goal. It gets ensured that they are converted into tactical actions by all people at all levels who are making these decisions, whether it's about deciding which ones to private label or placing an order for the inventory which is going to be out of stock and so on and so forth. So you're saying a lot of cost as an organization in terms of maintaining and managing these processes, these collaborations, or cost of going back and correcting some of the tactical actions which were not aligned to the strategy action. So that's definitely the second value. The third value, which is very, very clear upfront, is the amount of time it takes to make a decision. Traditionally, it would take weeks, multiple meetings, reports from multiple sources. A lot of times they are delayed, and that slows down the decision making. Even after that decision is made, by the time the decision is executed, it might be out of date. So getting actionable insights which can instill not only confidence on why it has been recommended, but even taking very specific steps. For example, well, yes, this is the product I should be going after to place an order, but how many should I order? So even those actionable insights are available to me, so I'm ready to take action right away. The myth, the biggest challenge that the enterprises have been facing so far is in order to embark on something as powerful as this, you are forced to establish the data science practice within your enterprise. Then you have to look at challenges such as, okay, how do I establish a continuous learning data sets? Can I actually really bring in data from all my data sets? These data are residing in various multiple systems. How do I bring all of those together? I don't really have a data warehouse or a data lake in place. How do I cater to that? Well, how do I bridge the gap between my business and data science folks? The data science folks seem to talk a data language, machine learning language, and my business folks, they just want to talk in terms of goals. How do I bridge these two gaps? Can I really bring in dials and controls which simply can be controlled by business users without having to go back to the data science team? And as my data expands, data sets expand, how can something like that be managed? Do I need to build a next generation data plowing machinery in-house? And I also have data sensitivity issues. There are certain data sets I definitely want to keep to very closed community. I don't want that to get over the cloud, and so on and so forth. Can I really have a premise agnostic solution to this? And last but not the least, which models would work for me? These are all the complex questions which become a big hurdle for enterprises to be able to embark on these type of decision making. And that's where a platform like DecisionMines, a solution like that, solves that. DecisionMines takes it even further. We do what we call as a pilot-based approach. A lot of times there will be reservations. Number one, in terms of areas such as, do I have sufficient data sets? Can a system really deliver to the claim that it is making of this order? And that's why DecisionMines creates an engagement where we can start with a pilot-based approach, which means your own data, your own problem statements, and within weeks, showcase and pilot to the end users that the output is really delivering what it is promising, focused on your own customized data set, not something that is out of the box, which might work for a retailer A, but for retailer B, it's not in line. And of course, DecisionMines is one of the flagship products of the parent company, which is Sybase, that today both Rakesh and me are representing. It's been in the retail space for a very long time. We've been in the industry for the last 23 years, and we've been very successful, have been a growth rate of approximately 14.5% year on year. We are a very large workforce of 6,000 people. Have good experience across the globe, mostly in the North American and the Europe region. We work with very different sets of clients, very large enterprises to small enterprises, so that does add a very good mix to our experience. And our engagements have been really long. We believe in very long-term partnerships where the businesses can see value, and on an average, our customer engagements have lasted 8 years or more. While we've been very delivery focused and score very well in terms of customer happiness, We also score very highly internally in terms of employee satisfaction as well. We've been ranked number one in 7 out of 8 parameters in Glassdoor, which is the social media for employees. So I definitely would love to hand over for questions that you may have. Hey, Rakesh, are you able to see any questions there? Does this replace the human decision maker? Can it really fill in the shoes of an operational or a strategic leader? And on a lighter note, can it really play chess or can it do my job while I enjoy at the beach? This is a great question. Uh, yes, I mean, products like DecisionMines are not intended to replace the decision maker. The intention is to augment the capabilities, the domain knowledge, the experience that the decision maker has, and augment it with the science of data. There is a certain degree of truth that resides in data, which generally becomes very difficult for a human to fathom in a matrixed fashion. And that's where a significant value addition comes into play. So it does support. Well, as far as the question of will it allow you to go and enjoy the beach? Well, yes, because if it is going to bring down the amount of time that it takes for you to do decision making, you'll certainly be freed up with more time to do other successful stuff. Let me see. There's another question here. Yeah, is there anything for bundled products? Yes, absolutely. The way the model really works is you can define for every decision point, you could actually have multiple models. You could have a hierarchy of models, and in those models, it actually treats as entities the way you would define them. These entities could be SKU based themselves or individual line item products. These could actually be bundled products themselves, and so on and so forth. So yes, there is definitely that flexibility, and depending on the data sets that you have available, those decisions can also be made at a bundle level of products.
Sure. So one of the questions we have here is what kind of controls do I have on the parameters controlling the model? And there's an example, if the model is created based on sales, inventory level, brand value, lead time, and the like, what if I want to exclude certain parameters like inventory level? How do I go about that?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so the way to go about that is on the screen that we saw, and maybe I can just shift gear here and share the screen. Okay, I'm not able to do that, but yeah, the way we can do it is where we noticed it had given certain weightages based on its machine learning for each of the areas or each of the parameters. I can, as a business user, just go in and override. If I want to switch off one of those, I just give it a weighted 0, in which case the model automatically knows that you do not want to give significance to this one, and you can switch that off. Not only that, the power user controls that we saw, they're actually completely customizable. Uh, the pilot engagement that we are talking about, the goal of that engagement is to address three aspects within an organization. The first one is definitely what is the problem area that you're trying to solve in a deeper way within private label itself also. Then take insights from the power users or folks who want to drive the business goals in terms of what type of controls do they really want. I mean, there can be the models themselves and all the underlying solvers. they may have about 100 parameters but you want to simplify that, and we ask these folks, what are the controls that you would like? And then it's fairly straightforward job to expose those controls to the business users. So Rakesh, I think there's some background conversation going on, but over to you. I hope that answers the question for Tim.
Sure. Thanks for that. The other question we have is if DecisionMines is a SaaS-based subscription solution, and where does the data reside?
So DecisionMines is infrastructure agnostic, which means you can really have it deployed on the cloud, and if you're okay with your data traveling into the cloud, of course into a safe, secured zone, which only you can choose who would have access to, then definitely it can go on the cloud. As far as the pricing model goes, it's purely annual licensing based model. So in that sense, yes, it is software as a service. If you go with that option where you are okay with going into the cloud, and then in that case your subscription is annual. However, if you're very sensitive about the data, the entire DecisionMines solution and platform can be deployed within your data warehouse, data centers, and your data completely resides within your organization. In which case it is a pure play license-based model that will be followed. You can also go somewhere in middle where it's a hybrid, where certain data sets you don't want to be traveling into the cloud, but you're okay with other data sets going into the cloud.
How much data do I really need for something like DecisionMines to be useful for my organization? What if we do not have data on all the different aspects you demonstrated?
Excellent. This is a very huge chicken and egg situation that most enterprises are facing. Do I really have sufficient data to embark? Most enterprises believe that I first need to embark on a journey where I have a data lake in place, a very mature data management platform in place, and that's only when I can start going forward towards data science and so on and so forth. While yes, that's a ideal path to take, but most organizations would take many years in order to go there, and most of the time the priorities and budget allocations force not to go in those directions. And but at the same time, if you don't really embark on a data science journey, your concept of which data sets I should start capturing, which I may not have, what should be the priority of those data sets, etc., becomes extremely difficult or theoretical to answer, and you miss out on capturing the real sense. So what we have found is, even with basic data sets, such as your sales data, your product catalog inventory, or even data sets related to your vendor, from your vendor systems in terms of how much time it takes to stock, etc., that itself can be a very good starting point to bring in a system like DecisionMines, where it can function based on these available data sets and take you to some degree of automated decision making, even if not holistic. And then gradually you can keep adding newer data sets to it. It will also keep telling you over a period of time what type of data sets I should be investing in bringing under the umbrella.
Sure. Thanks, Kiran. Okay. So the next question we have on the line is, how much data do I really need for something like DecisionMines to be useful to me? And how do you look at data which may be outside the ecosystem in terms of knowing what is competition doing, as an example, on the market trend?
Correct. So definitely your internal data sets are extremely, those are the pivotal ones. But a lot of times, unless you also look at the market pulse, the decisions might be not complete, in which case if you as an enterprise has access to any external data sets, which might be the market trends or your competitive data sets, those can be very easily plugged in to a system like DecisionMines, which can now start looking at those new data sets, and the model can start looking at correlations, patterns, and behaviors that the market is showing, and add also that to the decision-making weighted criteria.
Sure. Thanks, Kiran. We do have one question from Erwin, and the question is in terms of what is the uniqueness of DecisionMines?
That's a great question. There are multiple aspects in which DecisionMines is very differentiated from other solutions in the market. If you really look at the market, there are two ends in the spectrum. One end of the spectrum represents products which are data science platforms which are targeted towards data scientists themselves or data mining experts. And that's one extreme of the platforms and products. The other extreme are very specific decision points focused on a very specific industry with pre-built models. The problem is most organizations actually hover somewhere in the middle, where they do have their own nuances that they have to be catered to in terms of maybe missing data sets, the way they make decisions, and at the same time, they may or may not have the data science skill sets within the organizations. And DecisionMines actually fares out well on both these sides. If you're an organization who is a data science savvy, you can have more and more parameters exposed. You can actually deal with the model directly if you would like to. But if you're a business user, as we saw on a very simplified user interface, it just gives you the actionable insights that you need to be able to act on. And you can choose what is the level of insights that you really want if you get overwhelmed with some of those. So that is one very key aspect that DecisionMines brings to the table. The second aspect is the way the platform itself delivers the solution within a couple of weeks. You can very quickly see based on a pilot-based approach rather than taking months before you can really hit the ground and see if that solution is going to work for you. Within a couple of weeks, DecisionMines is able to bring the value to it. And last but not the least, the flexibility in terms of whether you want data very close to your heart, the platform agnostic nature, if you will, plays a very, very important role. Hey, Rakesh, on my panel, I also see another question which says, would DecisionMines help generating purchase order? Absolutely. Now, the DecisionMines UI that we saw is optional. I mean, it's great UI. We love it. Customers love it, but it's completely optional. What I mean by that is the DecisionMines platform, everything that it does and exposes via an API. And using these APIs and the insights that can be accessed via these APIs, I can very easily build connectors and wrappers which can push these insights and take actions in various systems. For example, if I'm an organization who is used to, let's say, using Salesforce as a platform or ServiceNow as a platform, DecisionMines can be actually sitting behind the scenes, and all the output that is coming from DecisionMines can be pushed within these platforms into my existing dashboards, or it can go in and create tasks directly, or it can make purchase order place, and it can go ahead and place purchase orders. Maybe I can set rules such that each day the top 10 recommendations from DecisionMines just go ahead and place purchase orders for those. It can very easily do that.
So there's a question posted on the chat window, not on the Q&A window, so I'll read it out, Kiran, for you. So the question is there anything for bundled products that sell together?
Yeah. So Rakesh, while you were out of audio, that was a question that I took. So that is answered. The second question I can see on the same chat window related to that is it says, if one product is out of stock, customer won't buy the another that is in stock and available. Absolutely true. So that's the reality of, as they call it, maybe very similar to the basket analysis. If for some reason, and that's a very, very crucial point, because I spoke about the fact that on one hand, going with customer demand only creates a less profitable business. On the other hand, if I'm more inclined towards going purely profitability of the business, then I may lose on the customers who are looking for value. And that's where the beauty lies, is if you can do a very good balancing act between the two, then you can not only ensure that you're catering to the needs of the customer in terms of demand, in terms of basket analysis that is happening there, but you're also optimizing, you're able to choose that for which type of products or which type of baskets I'm okay to compromise a little bit on the demand. But which are the ones which I should absolutely not be doing that, and I should be focusing more on profitability. So that becomes a very easy dial for you in terms of models here. Great. Rakesh, anything else?
Just making sure, since I was off audio for a few minutes. So there's a question which I believe may be unanswered yet, which is around most organizations already have some form of analytics and visualization tools, and some may have some form of analytics also inbuilt from prescription point of view. So how does DecisionMine fit into the existing set of BI solutions, or does it replace them?
Yes, absolutely. So DecisionMines is not aimed at replacing your existing BI solutions, because you may still need reporting for compliance reasons, for other insights at other areas for which you don't have a decision point yet. What DecisionMines does is it sits on top of your existing BI infrastructure, whether those are data management related stuff, the actual data itself, any other output that you're very comfortable with, happy about from your existing systems. All of that can be channeled into DecisionMines, and DecisionMines adds value on top of all of those to be able to take you to the next level of prescription.
I think that brings us to the end of our questions. Let me just take a quick last look in case there are any last questions at the last minute that may have come in. No, I think that's all. So thanks everyone. I hope and believe that this has been an informative session, something that we've seen resonate very well with our customers who are using the platform. And we would be happy to take this conversation ahead in case there are any specific follow-up or further deep dive that may be required from the session today. So thanks all. Have a nice day. Have a nice evening based on where you are. And thank you, Kiran. Has been great having you with us.
Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you, everyone. It was a great pleasure. Looking forward to interacting with you more.
Sure. And on a closing note, there's a short survey that should come up as you log off. Do take a minute. It will help us in improving how we conducted this webinar and the kind of details we should be looking to provide. Thanks again. Bye for now.